Hey guys, you're welcome back to my channel today. Thank you so much for stopping by. In this video, we'll be cutting and sewing this bustier dress with the Basque waistline that you can see on your screen. Without further ado, let's jump right into the video. So I'll first of all draft on my pattern paper before transferring to the fabric. So I'll be cutting out the upper bodice first. I'll start taking my points. The first point is the distance from my shoulder to my bust point, which is 10 inches. The next point is distance from my shoulder to my under bust point, which is 13 inches. The next point is distance from my shoulder to my waist point, which is 16 inches, and I added half an inch to that 16 inches. So what I'll do is to extend all the lines like this, and then I'm going to label them. The first line is my bust line, the second one is my under bust line, the last line is my waistline. The next thing I'll do is to take half of my shoulder measurements. On that point, I'll go down by 1 inch for my shoulder slope, and I'll slant from there into the neckline area. After doing that, I'll go down by my armhole depth. To know your armhole depth, you divide your bust circumference by 6 and then you add 1 inch to whatever you get. Mine is 8 inches, so I placed my tape on the shoulder slope and I went down by 8 inches. On that 8 inches point, I'm going to rule a straight line across. So this line is going to serve as my chest line. On that chest line, I'm going to place the same measurement that I have on the shoulder line, which is 8 inches, and I'll connect from the shoulder slope to meet the chest line in a straight line like this. The next thing I'll do is to mark my neck depth. So the neck is a bit wide, so I'll be taking 4 inches as the neck depth. So it depends on how wide you want your neckline to be. Okay, that is for the neck width. The neck depth, I'll be using 5 inches. It's like a square neckline. After doing that, I'm going to take half of my nipple to nipple measurement, which is 4 inches. On the waistline, I'll mark 4 inches. On the under bust line, I'll mark 4 inches, and on the bust line, I'll mark 4 inches. After doing that, I'll connect the 3 dots into a straight line. So the next thing I'll do now is to take in my darts. Before I do that, I'm going to go down by 1 inch from the bust line, and I'll mark the 1 inch. And then on the side front, I'll take 1 inch. On the center front, I'll take 1 inch. So please note that this is not the standard. I'm working with a bust size that is below 40 inches. That is why I'm taking 1 inch on both sides. So if the bust size you're working with is more than 40 inches, you'll be taking about 1.5 inches or 2 inches on the side front, and you take 1 inch on the center front. Okay, so after doing that, I connected the 1 inch into a straight line, and then I'm going to use the curved part of my ruler to connect from the under bust line to meet the 1 inch that I came down with earlier, as you can see. And for the side front, I'll use the part that is curvy to just connect from the under bust to also meet the 1 inch that I came down with like this. Okay, after connecting, this is what I have. The next thing I did was to determine how deep I want the neckline to be. Okay, so I went up by 2 inches from the previous chest line. Okay, that's because I don't want the neckline to be too deep. I don't want my cleavages to show, so that is why I went up by 2 inches from the previous chest line. But if you want your chest area to be open, you can just maintain the previous chest line. So this is my new chest line. On this new chest line, I'm going to come in by my nipple to nipple measurement, which is 4 inches, half of my nipple to nipple measurement, sorry, which is 4 inches, and then I'm going to extend the dart leg now to meet the new chest line. So this is my new chest line. This is where the chest line of my dress is going to start from. But if you want yours deeper, maintain the previous chest line or go up by 1 inch, 1.5 inches, depending on how deep you want it to be. So now I'll be taking 0.75 inches on both sides to tighten the over bust. Okay, so I'm using 1.5 inches now to tighten the over bust. So I'm going to connect from there to meet the bust line using the curved part of my ruler, as you can see. So after tightening the over bust, this is what I have. So the next thing I'm going to do now is to place my tape on this straight line, and I'm going to divide what I have into two. What I have is 8 inches. Half of 8 inches is 4 inches. I indicated the 4 inches. On that 4 inches mark, I came in by half an inch, and I also indicated the half an inch with a dot. On the previous chest line, I placed my bust circumference divided by 4, and I indicated it with a dot. So now I'll connect from the shoulder slope to the half an inch that I came down with, and from there I'll use this curved part of my ruler to connect to meet the dots that I have on the previous chest line like this. After doing that, guys, I have the armhole area. The next thing I'll do now is to start placing my measurements. I already have my bust circumference divided by 4 on the chest line. What I'll do now is to replace the darts of 1.5 inches that I have here, and then I'll add 1.5 inches as my stitching allowance. On the under bust line, I'll place my under bust circumference divided by 4. I'll replace the dart of 2 inches and I'll add extra 1.5 inches for my stitching allowance. On the base of the dress, now this dress has a Basque waistline and I totally forgot, but I'm going to do that later. So on the base, you are going to place your hip circumference divided by 4, replace your dart and add your stitching allowance. Okay, so the base of the dress is wide enough. Okay, so you are going to extend your pattern paper from the waistline by how long you want the Basque waistline to be. Okay, so on my own waistline, I placed my waist circumference divided by 4. I replaced the dart and I add my stitching allowance of 1.5 inches. After doing that, I connected the 3 dots like this. So the next thing I'll do is to connect my neckline. So my neck depth is 5 inches and my neck width is 4 inches. So I'm trying to make everything align, and then I'll use my ruler to connect. I'll first of all extend the neck width to meet the neck depth, which is about 5 inches, and then I'll connect from there to the center front. So we have a square neckline for the front. So after doing that, guys, the dress has a Queen Anne neckline, so it depends on how wide you want the neckline to be. So from this armhole area, I'm going to come in by about 1.5 inches and I'll connect from there to this point, as you can see. Okay, so this neckline area is not necessary unless you want to sew it like this. Okay, with the Queen Anne neckline, you are just going to need only the yoke. Okay, so I'll go ahead and tighten the yoke. I'll come up by half an inch on this part and I'll connect it back. Look at the way I'm placing my roller. So I'm going to cut this part out just so the yoke area is not going to bulge when I'm done sewing. Okay, so I'll be cutting this part of the yoke out. Okay, the only part that we'll be needing on the upper part is the yoke. The neckline, we don't need it unless you want your dress to be like that. Okay, so now I'll go ahead and cut. Okay, so pay close attention so you know where to cut. After cutting the main bodies, you are also going to go ahead and cut out the Queen Anne yoke. At this point, I was trying to figure out whether I wanted to use the yoke or the main neckline. Okay, so if you want the Queen Anne neckline, just cut it out. Okay, so I'm trying to fold it to know exactly what I want, and I decided to use the Queen Anne yoke, which is exactly what is on the thumbnail. So just mark out where you are going to be stitching the Queen Anne yoke to the bustier. Okay, so go ahead and draft out the back. I'll be doing the Basque waistline after this. So I'll start marking my points. The first point is the distance from my shoulder to my bust point, which is 10 inches. The last point is distance from my shoulder to my waist point, which is 16 inches. I added half an inch to that measurement for joining allowance. The back does not have a Basque waistline, so it's going to stop at 16 inches, which is my waist point. So the next thing I'm doing now is taking my zipper allowance, which is 1.5 inches. Okay, so if you want a zipper for your dress, take out your zipper allowance. Okay, the next thing I did was to mark half of my shoulder measurement after the zipper allowance. I indicated that with a point. On the point, I came down by 1 inch for my shoulder slope and I slanted from there into the neckline area. After doing that, I placed my tape on the shoulder slope and I came down by my armhole depth, which is 8 inches. On that 8 inches, I went ahead to mark exactly what I have on the shoulder line, which is 8 inches, and I ruled a straight line across that point to serve as my chest line. After doing that, I'm going to connect into a straight line like this. So we're repeating everything that we did for the front pattern. Okay, so the next thing I did was to place my tape on the straight line and I divided what I had into 2, which is 4 inches. On the chest line, I placed my bust circumference divided by 4. I also indicated that with a dot. After doing that, I connected from the middle point on the straight line to meet the dot that I have on the chest line. After doing that, I'll be taking half of my nipple to nipple measurements on the waistline and on the bust line, and then I'll connect into a straight line like this. The next thing I'll do is to take half an inch on both sides. If you're on a bigger side, you can do 0.75 inches on both sides. Okay, and then I'll connect upward. We don't have the under bust line at the back because we don't need it, so we took the basic darts for the back. I already have my bust circumference divided by 4 on the chest line, so I added 1.5 inches for my stitching allowance. On the waistline, I placed my waist circumference divided by 4. I replaced the dart of 1 inch and I added 1.5 inches for my stitching allowance. The next thing I did was to adjust the zipper area, so I took out half an inch from the 1.5 inches that I have on the waistline. I'll connect it upward like this. Okay, so this is to eliminate zipper bulge from the back. So the next thing I did was to take my neck measurement. For the neck width, I used 4 inches just like I did for the front, and for the neck depth I used 1.5 inches. I used my roller to connect like this. After doing that, I'm going to go down by about 3 inches, okay, or 3.5 inches from the neck depth. Okay, this is because I want the loop at the back to be a little bit wide. So now you can connect it how you want. You can connect it in a circular form. You can see that I'm connecting mine in a triangular form, so you determine how wide you want that opening at the back to be. I marked 3.5 inches for mine, so I'm going to just connect from that 3 inches. You don't have to go down by 3.5 inches. You can do 1 inch, okay, and then you connect with the shape that you want for the back. Okay, after doing that, I'm going to cut as you can see me doing. So this is the yoke for the back. I'm going to split it from the chest line and then I'll open it up like this. Okay, so this is what we'll be using for the back. I'm sure you noticed that I didn't go up by 2 inches from the chest line just like I did for the front. That is because I want the back to be really open. So I've gone ahead to place my pattern paper on my fabric. Okay, so the Basque waistline that I didn't do earlier is what I want to show you guys now. Okay, so I folded my fabric into 2. Center front is on fold. What I did was to just extend the center front. Okay, I extended it by about 5 inches. As you can see, I used my roller to connect in a slant from that 5 inches now to meet the side front. Okay, so that is what I did for the Basque waistline. And for the part that we are going to join, which is the side, I added half an inch all the way. So what I'll do now is to cut as you can see me doing. So make sure you are leaving about half an inch on the side for your joining allowance. Okay, then you are going to cut. So once you fold your fabric into 2, place both center front and side front like you see me doing, and then go ahead and leave half an inch on the side that will be joining. Then you are going to cut out just like you see me do. So guys, after cutting, this is what I have. Okay, we have the center front which I extended by 5 inches, and we have the side front. So you can do this on your pattern paper before transferring to your main fabric. I forgot to do that. Okay, so now I went ahead to cut out my yoke. Before cutting out your yoke, the half an inch that I cut out of the yoke, make sure you cut it out. Okay, and then you add half an inch around the yoke, but don't add half an inch to the base of the yoke. Okay, this is because we want to tighten the base of the yoke so it does not bulge. Now I'm going to open up my fabric and I'll iron my hairstay and my wording to it. Okay, and then I'll cut out my lining piece. So for the back, I've gone ahead to also cut out the main fabric, so I'll use the main fabric now to cut out the lining piece. You can see that I added half an inch all the way around the yoke, and then lastly you are going to cut out your basic sleeves. Okay, so this is the sleeves I'll be using. Okay, so I'll see you guys in the sewing tutorial. Thank you so much for watching.